Your Honor, the state calls Jared Cinema. Please step right up there.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could you just step up and raise your right hand up, please, and make this swear? Yes. You swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you very much, sir. Please have a seat.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can I have you state your full name and spell your last name for our record?
Jared C. Cinema. That's Sinnnem as in Michael A.
And do you have an address that you can give us?
1325 Pioneer Highway East, Arlington, Washington, 98223.
Is that where you live, or is that a work address, or
Yes, that's where I live.
How old are you today?
19.
I'm going to ask you a number of questions about July of 2011, if I could. Is that all right?
Yep.
And I'm guessing, if I do the math right, you were about 14 back in July of 2011.
Yeah.
All right. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Are you currently working?
Yeah, I work on the weekends. I do actually not at 4 in the morning now. But milk for my dad and do some feeding and stuff during the week. And yeah.
What does your dad do?
My dad's a dairy farmer, raw milk dairy farmer, Old Savannah Creamery.
Could you say that again, please?
Raw milk dairy farmer.
Now, I'm going to confess, I'm not much of a dairy farmer. What's the difference between a raw milk dairy farmer and a milk dairy farmer?
Well, raw milk is pretty much, we milk the cow, put it straight into the tank, and well, through a filter, and then we bottle it and then sell it.
Oh.
So Dairy Gold is, they go through the pasteurization process and pretty much make it white water. And then they sell it that way. But
and you said you milk on the weekends?
yeah.
So you got to get up about 8 or 9 in the morning to do that?
Well, we changed the schedule around a little bit, so we have to wake up 4 in the morning and then milk at 3 in the afternoon also.
All right. And then on the weekdays, what do you do?
Well, currently I'm studying to be a career firefighter at EVCC. So, I'll do help with bottling, and then I'll be studying also during the week.
Let me ask you a little bit about your family's farm. So it is a dairy farm then?
Yeah.
Is it anywhere near the Stillaguamish River?
Yeah.
And how close is it?
About a quarter mile.
And is the Stillaguamish River a place that you're pretty familiar with?
Yeah.
How are you so familiar with it?
Well, I grew up in the farm my whole life, so I don't know, we've always kind of gone down there swimming and things like that.
And is it a place like you'd hang out during the summers all day, that kind of thing, and no one knows where you are for 10 or 12 hours?
Sometimes, yeah.
All right. Let me have you think back then to July of 2011 when you're 14.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask you if you recall being down on the banks of the Stillaguamish just goofing around.
Yep.
So tell the jury who you were with and what you were doing.
I was with my brother and with my friend, and we're just, I don't know, going down there, just goofing around, like skipping rocks and stuff like that. And then, we're just messing around down there.
How far, does your family farm actually go up to the Stillaguamish, or is it a little bit distance away?
No, we have about 250 yards between the river and our property.
And the place where you guys were fooling around, or goofing around, is, what's at that location? What kind of a land is there?
Is, I don't know, a decent sized river bar, and then the river there. So, yeah.
Are you familiar with the bridge on Interstate 5 that goes over the Stillaguamish?
Yeah.
How far would you estimate where you guys were playing or hanging out is from that river bridge over I-5?
About half a mile.
And is there we've heard some mention of something called a Lowhead Dam or some kind of a dam on the Stillaguamish.
Yeah.
What do you guys call it?
Or we can, I don't know, locally we just call it like the Fish Falls.
How far is the Fish Falls from the bridge that goes over on I-5 that goes over the Stillaguamish?
I don't know, probably about like a third of a mile.
So if you're going downriver from on the Stillaguamish from just underneath I-5 where that bridge is, do you come to the Fish Falls first, or do you come to where you guys were hanging out first?
We go to the Fish Falls first, yeah.
How high are the Fish Falls?
Well, probably from like the bed of the river, probably, I don't know, 6-7 feet tall.
Yeah, do you know any chance why there's a Fish Falls there?
Probably for, I don't really know exactly, but
No problem. Are you pretty familiar with the Stillaguamish in terms of the different, if it gets slower or faster depending on rainfall?
Oh yeah, yeah. We just had flooding a couple days ago, and our milker almost couldn't get to work. Guess because there's so much water everywhere. But yeah, it's really fast during flooding season.
So I'm going to have you focus your mind then back to the day of July 10th, 2011, and the day you said that you were down there with your brother and a friend. You guys are skipping rocks, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
So tell the jury whether you found something.
Yeah, we were just, skipped rocks and stuff, and then I was looking for rocks to throw, and then I saw a leather holster, and then I look underneath the holster, and then there's a gun in it, so I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So then I picked it up, and then we went back home, and then, yeah.
So let me stop you there. So the leather holster, is it lying, what's it, where are you finding it? Is it in the water, is it on the land, or?
It was on the land, in the river bar. It was kind of partially covered in sand.
And do you have to dig it out to get it, or what?
Not dig, but just pull on the holster itself, just to pull it out of the sand. But
when you see the holster, did you actually see whether there was a gun with the holster or in the holster?
not at first, not until I picked up the holster.
So you pick up the holster, and what kind of condition is the holster in?
It's not really that good. Like, I wouldn't want to keep it. I wouldn't want to put it on my hip.
Did you keep it?
No.
What'd you do with it?
Left it there.
How about the gun? What kind of condition was the gun in?
Really rusty, corroded. Didn't even want to move at all at first until I got rinsed off and stuff at home.
You say it didn't want to move?
Yeah, like the cylinder, the hammer, trigger, all the moving parts.
Let me ask you this: do you know a bit about guns?
Yeah.
How do you know so much?
My dad was a gun dealer for 15 years before he did the raw milk, and then so I've been growing up around guns and stuff like that, and always I don't know, been around them my whole life.
Can you recognize guns at sight, like whether it's a semi-automatic or a revolver,
Yeah.
that type of thing?
Yeah.
When you saw this gun, did you recognize what kind of a weapon it was?
Yep. Smith & Wesson 357 revolver.
And you knew that right away?
Yeah.
Have you ever fired a 357 revolver?
Yeah. I have.
But let me ask it a different way. You were 14 then.
Yeah.
But you fired one before you were 14.
Yeah, I have. Probably when I was like 7 or so.
So you immediately recognized what this was.
Yep.
Did you make any effort when you first found it to clean it up right at the spot where you were, or did you take it back home?
I took it back home and then I started cleaning on it.
So what was the plan then when you took the revolver back home? What were you hoping was going to happen?
Well, I was hoping it wasn't going to be, something that I had to turn over, but we probably should have turned it over anyway. And so that's what we did. But
So,
I was wanting to keep it.
If you had kept it, were you going to try and refurbish it, or?
Yeah, I'd probably have blasted it and then reblued it or painted it. I don't know.
Reblasted it and reblued it.
Yeah, blast, yeah. It's sort of sand and compressed air.
Very good. You can tell I know a lot about guns. So you take it home, and you make a decision that maybe you should tell somebody about it?
Yeah.
Who'd you first tell?
I told my dad, and I was like, oh, look what I found. And then he's like, oh, wow, cool. And then he's like, well, we probably should call the sheriff's office just to make sure it's not stolen or whatever. And if it's not, or, whatever, then they'd probably have it for a while, and then, I don't know, however many years it is unclaimed, and then we'd get it back. But
Did he tell you you had to call the sheriff's office, or did you leave it to your choice?
he kind of told me, like, you can, like, it's your choice, but I don't think he would have let me said, no, I'm going to keep it. But I was like, yeah, I probably should call it in anyway.
So did you call it in, or did your dad call it in?
My dad called it in.
So was that the same day that you found it?
Yeah.
So what happens next? You've got this revolver, you've called the sheriff's office. Did you have any contact from the sheriff's office?
Not me myself, but my dad, he called them, and then, I don't know, like half an hour later they came. And then,
Just so we're clear on this, you guys live in Snohomish County?
yes.
So the sheriff's office you're calling is Snohomish County Sheriff?
Yep.
Do you remember about what time of day it was that you might have found the weapon?
It was mid-afternoon-ish, yeah.
And so the sheriff then gets called later that same day?
Yeah.
And you actually then meet with the deputy later that same day as
Yep,
well?
right in our driveway.
So tell us then how that meeting went. What'd you guys do?
Well, yeah, we just brought it out there, and he's like, well, we found a revolver, and then, so then he gave me a case number and the card for the revolver, and then he said it probably might be used in something. So, yeah, they said they'd check on it and then let us know.
And was the idea that if there was something important about it, you were going to get it back?
Maybe.
Was it
Hopefully. Yeah.
So you give him that, he gives you a card in exchange.
Yep.
And you ever see, and after that, I take it you had no contact with the revolver at that period of time?
No.
I'm going to show you some photographs, if I could.
Mm-hmm.
States exhibits 134, 135, 136, and marked for identification.
I'm going to hand you what has been marked for identification as State's Exhibit number 134. Jared, I'm going to ask you if you wouldn't mind just taking a look through those pages and tell us whether or not you recognize sort of generally what they are.
Yep. It's a map of West Snohomish County area.
And does it look pretty familiar to you in terms of being about the area where you live and all?
Yeah.
And how about anything about these images or these maps that looks inaccurate in any way?
No. Satellite photo's pretty accurate.
Okay. Your Honor, the state would offer at this time what's been marked for identification as State's Exhibit number 134.
Any objection to 134?
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you. 134 is admitted.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Ms. Morales if we can put this up on the screen. So for the record, we're looking at State's Exhibit 134 on a slide that says recovery of .357 Magnum revolver, Stillaguamish River. All right? So, Jared, I'm going to hand you a laser pointer.
Okay.
I'm trying to point out to you in the dark here where the button is. It's right there at the top.
Okay.
So if we could take a look at the first slide in this exhibit. There we go. Now, for the record, this slide is captioned Stillaguamish River at I-5, and it is slide A. Jared, if you could just tell us generally, we'll orient ourselves. So the jurors have seen a couple of these slides before, but orient us as to sort of approximately where you live up on I-5 there near Arlington.
Okay, I live right about around there, just on the other side of the freeway there, the west side of the freeway.
Right. We could see the next slide. This is slide B, captioned Stillaguamish River at I-5 close-up. And would you mind just with the laser again showing us approximately where you live?
Right about there.
Okay, and just for the record, you're pointing just to the left or to the west of I-5,
Yes.
about parallel with the word Arlington.
Yep.
All right. We can see the next slide. This is slide C, captioned Stillaguamish River at I-5 close-up. And does it look familiar to you as to the intersection of sort of I-5 and the Stillaguamish?
Yes.
If you could sort of show us with the laser approximately where your family's farm is.
It's right about there.
All right. And then again, for the record, you're pointing just to the left or to the west of I-5 where there's a road that intersects south of the Stillaguamish.
Yes.
And the next slide. This is slide D, captioned Stillaguamish River at I-5 close-up. And describe what we're seeing here.
Well, it looks like the I-5 and Stillaguamish intersection there with the two sloughs. And, yeah.
Can you tell on this slide approximately where your family farm is?
It's just slightly out of picture, but it's just like right about there.
Can you tell from this slide where the fish falls are located?
Yeah, the fish falls, I think they're about right there, in that skinny spot.
And then the area where you found the weapon?
Weapon's about right there.
So if we could see the next slide, which is slide E, captioned Stillaguamish River at I-5 looking north. And again, if you could, is this the same slide but simply the satellite view?
Yeah.
Is your family farm then out of this picture, or can you see it?
No, it's right there.
And then the next slide, just slide F, and caption Stillaguamish River at I-5 looking north close up. And if you could show us, if you can tell where the fish ladder is in this picture, the fish balls.
It looks like it's right about, like right here, I think. Yeah.
The area where you and your brother and your friend were hanging out and goofing off on July 10th, 2011 is about where?
Right about there. The river bar behind the trees there.
So south slope or north slope? Or south, excuse me, south bank or north?
South bank, yeah.
Right. We could see the next slide, which is slide G. And then just to orient us here, it says Stillaguamish River at I-5 looking north close up. The I-5 bridge is to the far right.
Mm-hmm.
Can you point with the laser and show us where the fish falls are?
Right there, that line.
And then approximately the area where you and your brother and your friend were goofing off.
Right about there.
The next slide. This is slide H. Just to orient us, show us where the fish balls are again.
Fish balls right there.
And then the area where you and your brother and friend were hanging out.
Right there.
And then the next slide. Caption Stillaguamish River at I-5 looking north close up. Can you tell on this slide approximately where it was that you found the revolver?
Yeah, right about where that red arrow is pointing.
And you recall the white area that we can now see in this slide, is that gravel, sand, rocks, or what?
About a mixture of gravel and sand, yeah.
You spend a lot of time down there?
Yeah, along the river, yeah. During the summer we do.
And if we could see the next slide. This is captioned Stillaguamish River at I-5, this time looking south, close up. And I-5 is there on the far left, just to orient us where the fish falls are.
Fish falls are right there.
And where would your family farm be?
Be like off camera,
Right.
right there.
And then if we could see the next slide. Slide K. Fish balls again.
Fish falls are right there.
In the area where you and your brother and your friend were hanging out.
Right there.
Next slide is slide L. Okay, I think we're almost done. Fish balls again,
Right there.
and the place where you guys were hanging out.
Right there.
Yeah, I think there's one more slide from this view. Again, still going from slide 5, looking south, close up, slide M. And what does that red arrow signify there?
Where I found the weapon. That's pretty much right where I found it.
If can I ask you, was it actually that close to the sort of the water line there?
Yeah, it is. But you know, with flooding and stuff, the water would be like up into those trees about. So that would be, you know, on the bottom of the river if it was flooding.
If in this image here, if this is whatever, this is a Google map or something, can you tell based on the water level how fast the river is moving at this time of year? This time of year,
it's not moving that fast, just because it's might be, I don't know, 2 or 3 feet deep in the middle. But yeah.
And then I think we're going to take one more perspective here, looking west at the next slide, which is slide N. Stillaguamish River at I-5 looking west. Close up, and you can see. Can you see there where the Stillaguamish cuts now underneath I-5?
Yeah.
And you point that out with the laser points.
Right there.
Your family farm is where?
Right there.
So when you guys were going when you were 14 years old and you're heading down there to goof off, how are you guys getting there? Are you driving or?
Well, I was 14, so we didn't drive. We'll usually walk or ride our bikes or something like that. So we'd usually just drive along the field, and then go along the Logan Road, and then go along the Dyke Road. We'll go, there are river bars all along here that we hang out at, so then we went to along there, yeah.
Is it unusual to find stuff washing up on the banks, or is that?
Well, a gun, yeah. But, you know, usually you just find like fishing lures and things like that.
Fishing lures?
Yeah.
We can see the next slide. This is slide O. Again, Stillaguamish River at I-5 looking west close up. just for the jury, point out where the fish balls are. Here, I'm going to hand you another item of potential evidence. This has been marked for identification as State's Exhibit number 136. Let me hand it up to you, and I'm going to ask you to confirm to me that nothing about that envelope looks familiar to you.
No.
All right. You didn't put anything like any of the things that you found in July of 2011 inside that envelope?
No.
Okay. So what I'm going to ask you to do is cut along one of the edges so we can take a look inside. Before we take anything out, if you may just take a look and see if what you recognize what's inside.
Yep.
What's inside there?
3 spent casings that were in the gun.
Do they appear to be the same casings as the ones that you found on July 10th, 2011?
Yeah.
I know you're not a firearms expert, but or you may be actually.
Yeah.
Gotta watch what I say. Any reason to think those aren't the same shell casings?
No.
Let me take that back from you. Yeah, the state would offer what's been marked for identification as State's Exhibit number 136, conditionally again.
No objection to conditional admission, Your Honor.
All right, that'll be conditionally admitted.
Your Honor, may I publish to the jury?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. Jerry, can I ask you, do you know enough about weapons and about revolvers such as this that you can tell by looking at these shell casings that they're 357s?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry if I asked you this before, I've just forgotten if I did. Just to be clear, what you recall is finding the 3 shell casings. You're not certain whether that there were other shell casings in there?
Yes.
How about any unfired bullets?
I can't really remember if there were.
Any reason to think that there were unfired bullets?
I don't think so. I don't know.
The reason I ask, if there had been unfired bullets, would you have been more likely to keep those?
Probably not.
I don't mean keep them from the sheriff's office.
Oh no, no, I wouldn't have. No.
Okay. Would they have been of more interest to you than fired shell casings? I guess is what I'm asking.
Probably, yeah.
Very good. I have a moment. Those are all the questions that I have. Thank you.
No questions, thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you very much for being here. So you're free to go. Have a good day, okay?
That's it.
And your next.
State calls Deputy Jeff Minor.
Good morning, sir. Could you just step up here and make sure they can't swear you not the truth? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you very much, sir. Please have a seat.
Got a lot of gear there. Good morning.
Good morning.
Could I have you state your full name and spell your last name for our record?
Jeff Minor, M-I-N-E-R.
And I introduced you as a deputy. Are you a deputy sheriff?
Yes, I am, for Snohomish County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been with Snohomish County?
I lateraled to Snohomish County in 1999,
And where did you lateral from?
a city of Snohomish.
So how long in total have you been a police officer or with law enforcement?
I've been commissioned since 1992.
And if you could give the jury maybe a little bit of a thumbnail sketch of your sort of education, training, and experience.
City of Snohomish is a smaller town inside of Snohomish County. Be like kind of like Fife, a little bit smaller than that. I worked for about 5 years. Went to the Police Academy of Burien. Went to Reserve Academy in Monroe before that. Worked as a traffic unit, motorcycle unit. Worked investigations as a detective, both property crime and persons crimes. Work patrol, all shifts. Pretty much done most of the details for the as a police officer.
And what's your current assignment?
Graveyard, North County, Granite Falls area.
And that's North County, Snohomish County.
Yes, sir.
Does that include sort of the area around Arlington and where the Stillaguamish is crossed by I-5?
Yeah, it's everything north of Everett, the entire Snohomish County north of Everett.
And I don't know if you mentioned, did you attend the basic police academy as well?
Yes, I did.
The reason I ask is, have you received any particular training with respect to how to handle evidence?
Yes, I also I went to an additional week-long class that included extra training on evidence handling.
I'm going to ask you to think back to July 10th, 2011, and ask you if you were on duty that day.
Yes, I was.
And you remember what shift you were working?
It's graveyard, 6 at night till 6 in the morning.
And during the course of your shift on that day, did you get a call regarding a weapon that had been found along the Stillaguamish?
Yeah, I received a found property report. One of the citizens called in, said that his son found a revolver on the riverbank out by their farm.
Unusual to get that kind of a call, or?
Not really in the rural areas. They find all kinds of weird stuff out there, so it's not uncommon to find a firearm.
So when they find weird stuff, they call you?
Yes.
All right, very good. So you get a call that someone's son has found a firearm, and what did you do?
I went out there and spoke with them, got the details of where they found it, and then recovered that as found property, made it safe, took it back to the precinct, checked the serial numbers and stuff with our dispatch to see if it was stolen or if it actually belonged to anybody, and then package it up and submit it as evidence.
And let me ask you a question only a lawyer will ask. What is found property?
It's anything that's not related at that time to a specific crime, like homicide or any other crime.
So when you collect something as found property, do you say anything to the person who gave it to you in terms of whether they'll ever be able to place a claim on it or get it back?
People can claim it. There's a form for that. I think there's it's a 30-day deal if our property room doesn't find the owner. Some of the stuff like we'll also go to an auction type deal to raise money for the sheriff's office and stuff. If there are no owners located, but usually if the person that finds it is interested in it, then they're logged in as the first person that has rights back to it.
And so when you got this, do you remember the name of the person who you got the weapon from?
Yeah, his first name was Jacob.
Did you, any chance, did you see him this morning walking out of court?
Yeah.
You said you made it safe. Well, how do you make something like that safe?
Just make sure it's not loaded. It's not going to hurt anybody. So just open up the action, make sure there's no live rounds in it. And then with a revolver, in this case, we use these things called zip ties. Panduit's their real name. Just a plastic wire tie and put it through the action somehow. Usually I put it through the barrel and the cylinder.
And when you say put it through the action, what does that mean?
The action is the part of the weapon that moves to either cycle around or make the gun able to fire. In this case, it's a cylinder that pops out so you can load it.
So you take it from the boy. Remember how old he was?
No, he's 16, I think. I'd have to look at my report.
That's all right. So you take it from him, and then you said you ran a check on it to see if it was stolen?
Right. We have normally I wear a radio and I can communicate with our dispatcher. And there's a couple different programs. One's statewide and one's national computer systems where anytime something's stolen, or in this case a firearm is registered, it's a database that the dispatcher could run the serial numbers and let us know if it's ever been registered or if it's currently listed as stolen or if it's wanted for any reason.
So can you do that, or did you do that while you're in your car driving back, or later that night, or what?
Both.
You got this when you got the weapon initially. What did you place it in? How did you secure it, and what kind of a container?
I don't remember what I put it in my vehicle, but once I got back to the precinct, we have a cardboard weapons box that we could put firearms or knives. There's ones for pistols, rifles, and there's a way to secure it with more zip ties so it doesn't rattle around, and so that way we could make sure that evidence knows that they're getting an unloaded weapon and that it's already been made safe, etc.
So part of what you're doing is checking to see if it's stolen.
Correct.
How do you do that? I mean, obviously not just by a description, but do you have
right.
serial number?
There's usually a unique numbers on most property, especially firearms. Unless they're super old firearms, won't have a number on them. They'll have proof marks. But all the newer firearms are required to have a serial number on them. And so I use that serial number, and then the weapon's brand and description goes to the format that the dispatchers use to type that into, and then that will return a hit, is what we call the return, through a WASIC or NCIC hit, or a local for a weapon that was sold in the area for us.
Could you describe for the jury the condition of the weapon that you recovered on July 10th, 2011?
It was a pretty rough condition. The finish had been worn off. It had been in the river, and it looked like a firearm or a piece of metal that had been in the water for a long time.
How about anything associated with it, like shell casings?
Yeah, there was 3 shell casings in the revolver. The revolver, this one holds 6, so 3 empty chambers, and then there's 3 what I call spent or fired casings in there. So the bullet and the powder are gone, and the primer had been impacted by the hammer.
And was when you got the weapon from the boy, were those shell casings still in the cylinder, or had they been taken out by him?
They're still in the cylinder, I believe.
So you mentioned that later on that day, you're checking to see if it's been stolen. You talked about his serial number. Are you pretty familiar with weapons?
Yeah, for most of them.
Let me ask you, with this particular weapon, did you recognize what it was when you saw it? What type, make, and model, that type of
Yes.
What was it?
A Smith & Wesson 357 revolver, and it has some extra stuff. It had aftermarket grips on it, and then it had a target hammer, and I think a target trigger, 4-inch barrel.
So the reason I ask that is when you get back to wherever it is you're going later that night and you're checking serial numbers, do you know where to check, where the serial number is located on this particular weapon or this type of weapon?
Yes, there's 2 spots. Most firearms will have 2 spots for a serial number. On a semi-automatic, they'll have them on the slide and the barrel. And this revolver, usually they have them on the main frame part of the gun, the handle, or some part on the side of the frame. And then there's usually another spot. And in the Smith & Wesson, it's usually when the cylinder falls, when it comes out, there's a strap that holds that, and they'll stamp them in there. So I usually check both.
So when you got back to your precinct and you're checking, did you do any cleanup on the weapon to check?
No, I had to take the grips. The grips that were on it, I believe, are Packmars, and they're extra big rubber, so it makes it easier to shoot, more comfortable. And because of that, they cover up the strap on the bottom of the handle where the serial numbers are. So I took those grips off to verify that was the same as the other serial number.
And does this weapon also have a second serial number, as you said, located sort of near where the cylinder pops out?
Yeah, there's one where the cylinder pops out, and then there's one below where the grips were covered.
So why not just check the one where the cylinder pops out?
I just like to make sure that all the guns match. Sometimes things will change, barrels will get changed, or if people add parts or take parts off. And it's odd. I mean, we find guns out in the weeds or on farms or whatever, but for it to be in the river, it kind of led me to believe either a fisherman lost it or somebody was trying to get rid of it. So I just like to be thorough.
So then tell the jury, in terms of taking off the grips and checking that the number that was partially obscured by the grips, what did you do in terms of taking off the grips, and what did you find?
There's one screw that holds them on, and then they slip off. So I undid the screw and pulled the grip off. In that area of the gun, there's a hollow in there. So there's like 2 straps of steel, and then there's a void in there, and then the grip slides over that. There's a screw through it. And inside that area, it was full of real fine sand and rust flakes.
Rather than make you totally describe this verbally, I'm going to show you some pictures, all right?
Okay.
State's Exhibit 137 is marked with identification on it.
I'm going to hand you what has been marked for identification as State's Exhibit 137.
Thank you.
I'll ask you to take a look at that and tell us if you recognize the pictures, the images there.
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize those to be?
Images of the firearm that we're talking about that I recovered, and some 3 shell casings, and then the box that I used to package it.
Do these images fairly document and accurately document sort of your contact with the weapon and how you packaged it?
Correct.
And the state would offer what's been marked for identification as State's Exhibit number 137.
137? 137 submitted, thank you.
You can see that. also, Deputy Minor, there's a laser, believe it or not. Somewhere. Is that it? Yeah.
Which button?
He pointed at me here. I think it's at the very top here, and it's right underneath the screen.
Okay.
There we go. For the record, we're looking at this exhibit number 137. The first slide says SAT 60-61, 357 Magnum revolver and shell casing. And if we can see the next slide. This is first slide A. Deputy Minor, can you tell us whether you recognize what this is in this slide?
That's the top of the box that I used to package the firearm we're talking about so that I could submit it to our evidence room for processing.
There's a number, quite a bit of writing or information there in the upper left side under the word evidence. You see that up there?
Yeah, this is all the information that I filled out.
Okay, so that's all in your handwriting?
Yes, sir.
And there's a number of other dates and signatures and things like that. Any of those other ones belong to you at all?
No, sir. This right over here is, and those marks there are just my initials from when I taped the box closed so that I could show that it was sealed and that it hadn't been tampered with.
And for the record, since the transcript won't reflect exactly what we're talking about, we're talking about those partial initials on the far left and the far right where the flaps of the box is closed.
Yes, sir.
Up in the upper right, there's a number that says 07-366042. Is that your number?
No, sir.
And how about the initials SAT-60?
No.
We could see the next slide. This is slide B in State's Exhibit number 137. And describe for the jury what we're looking at here.
That's the Smith & Wesson 357 Magnum firearm that I recovered from the Jacob on the date we're talking about.
All right, so as we look at this, the reason I wanted to show you this is, could you then describe for the jury what it was about how you took off the grips to try and examine the serial number?
Certainly. This cylinder here slides out, you push this button and it falls out. And inside this strap, between this strap that rotates out and the frame, there's a stamped serial number. And then on the bottom of this, underneath this grip is the second serial number, and that's the grip. This whole section's, I think this is a one-piece grip. I had to slide off to verify that number.
So when you slide the grip off, what did you find on the inside?
A bunch of sand and some what looked like rust or a little metal particles, and then the parts of the inner workings of the firearm.
Do you know what a mainspring is in a firearm?
Yes, I do.
Where would the mainspring be located in this revolver?
This type of a firearm doesn't have a spring like a coil. It's a piece of spring steel, and it hooks into a little divot here, and then it goes up to the top here to the hammer. And when the hammer, which is this part, is cocked backwards via either your thumb or by pulling the trigger, it puts tension on that spring, and then that spring is what's used to drive the hammer forward when the trigger's pulled to impact the primer on the shell casing and fire the gun.
So just because the record won't reflect it, when you were explaining to us where the mainspring is, you were talking about inside the grip?
Yeah, it's inside this cavity here.
So you pull off the grip, and did you find a mainspring?
No.
And you said something in addition to sort of rust and sand, there was some metal parts?
Yeah, it looked like the mainspring, because it's a different kind of steel, it doesn't, I don't know if it didn't have a proper coating on it or if it just been in the water too long, because it was a confined area there. It had corroded, and it looked like all the little rust pieces that were in there are what used to be the mainspring.
So what became of all the metal pieces, the sand, the grit, that kind of stuff that fell out?
They went all over the desk, and then they went in the garbage.
At this point, do you have any idea whether you're now just checking the serial number, whether this is a stolen weapon or if it's involved in anything or of any interest to anybody?
No, no interest at this point to anybody other than the person that called it in that wanted it back. I wasn't aware if in our county, we didn't have any unsolved homicides where this could have been related, or we weren't working any shootings. And I'm fairly familiar with the district that I work because I live in it, and we weren't missing any firearms, so I just assumed it was someone lost their gun. And when I ran the numbers through the radio without it even ever being registered, I figured it had been somebody's for a long time and it wasn't in the system. So I just figured it was just a gun that was found and needed to be booked into the evidence in case somebody reported it missing, or if the evidence people could do more research.
All right. If we could see the next slide, just slide C. It just appeared to be a bit of a close-up view of that same revolver. Did you answer my question?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Oh, does this appear to be a close-up view of that same revolver?
I thought you were telling me it was. No, yeah, it's a close-up of the same revolver.
I would never.
I didn't fall asleep on you.
And the person who overused these ties, zip
That was
ties,
me.
And the next photograph. This is slide D, and does this show the sort of the action of moving the cylinder out and exposing the serial number?
Correct. It has a cylinder, ejection rods right there, and there's the stamp serial number that's on that part of the frame.
And the next slide. A bit of a blurry close-up of that same action, moving the cylinder out of the way.
Yes, sir.
And then the next slide. This is slide F. And can you read the serial number from there?
57K2079.
Were you, by the way, when you took the grips off, were you able to see whether that matched the a serial number at the base of the grip?
Yeah, it was the same number.
And obviously, you packaged this weapon back in the box. Did you put the grips back on then?
Yes, I did. And I put the spent casings in a different envelope.
So you say you checked this serial number and it did not come back registered to anybody?
Correct. The dispatcher said that there was no record of the firearm. And that was when I ran it earlier in the day, and when I was getting ready to package it, I had them check it again. They said there was no record.
And then if we could see the next slide. Do you recognize this envelope in slide G?
Yes, I do. That's the envelope that I used to package the 3 shell casings that were in the revolver.
We see some handwritten information there in the bottom half of the envelope. Did you put that information on there?
Yes, all that's my chicken scratch right there.
And in terms of the label that's in the upper right, it looks like a barcode. Is that something you would have put on, or somebody else might?
That'd be evidence would use that for their tracking. The only stuff that I put on it is the handwritten stuff that was used with the ink pen.
And the next slide. Again, let me ask you, top half of that same envelope,
Correct.
and I take it you don't know what case number or whose initials those are up above.
Correct. The only from there up is all that's not anything for me. The bottom part's the stuff that I took care of.
And then the next slide. This is slide I. Can you describe for the record, for the jury, what we're seeing here?
That's the top half of the same envelope we've been talking about, and 3 of the fired or spent shell casings for the revolver that we've been looking at.
And let me ask you, did you take these photographs, or would somebody else have taken these?
Somebody else did.
And then I think there's one more photo. This is slide J. Just for the record, tell us what we're seeing here.
Same top of the envelope, and then the same 3 shell casings laying on their side to show the primer end or the head of the shell where the primers have been impacted by the firing pin of the revolver.
We could have the lights back on. So you get this in the early evening of July 10th, 2011, take it back, check, no record of it, and then you packaged it up.
Correct, that same evening.
Same evening. So let me ask you, even later that same evening, did you realize that there might be an interest in this weapon?
No, not that night. We, the following day I did.
So tell us about that.
As I said, I've worked at the area where this revolver was discovered off and on for several years. Back in 2010-11, actually clear back 2003, I was a motor deputy, so I drove a motorcycle around, wrote nice folks like you tickets for driving too fast. And the partner that I rode with was also part of the Marine unit. He ran our boat for the divers. So we were at coffee one day at Starbucks before we went out to write nice people like you tickets, and he got dispatched to a dive call for an evidence dive out on the river. And it's January, I believe, just into December, January. Horrible weather, so I was not going to go out and help him with that. I was going to stay where it was dry and drink my coffee. So he went and did that for the day. I ended up eventually having to go down there, and they put in one of our boat, and they tried diving on this area of the river, and it was just too dangerous because of the water flowing, and we almost lost one of our divers that day. I asked him, why are you guys out diving on the water? It's ridiculous. And he said, well, there was a...
I would object this hearsay unless it's being offered for...
It's not being offered for the truth. It's to show the state of mind as to why this deputy took the actions that he
I'm
did.
going to overrule the objection and instruct the jury that the testimony is not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted, but simply give context to the deputy's testimony. So go ahead, sir.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
So I went down, the reason I went down there is to ask him why they were in the river, and he said that there was a homicide in Carnation, and it was reported that some evidence had been tossed off the I-5, Interstate 5 bridge over the river. Thus, they're assisting King County with that. That's why they're out there.
And was that about 3.5 years before you recovered this weapon from the boy?
Yes, the July 2010 was the recovery, and then it was several years before that was the other incident, 2007, I believe, 6, 7.
So you said July 2010. Are you sure about that year?
11. I have to look at my reports right here.
There you go.
Yeah, July of 2011 was the recovery time.
So
And then this dive incident I'm talking about was several years before that.
So you realize that it kind of pops in your head the next day?
Yeah, the next day, because it bothered me that someone found a pistol out on the river and I couldn't figure out what was up with it. And then I realized that, and I was like, So I got on the email and emailed the Sergeant Stitch, who runs our major crime unit, and told him that I thought we'd found one of the murder weapons, or possibly, for the homicide down at Carnation, and asked him to coordinate with King County's major crime unit to do some more research just to make sure that either it was or it wasn't, and if it was, to expedite getting them involved in case they wanted to come back out to the scene where the young man found the gun, because I never went out to the scene. I just picked it up from there. So I wanted to make sure they got on that as soon as possible.
So let me ask you, so you yourself didn't go out to the riverbank where the
No,
boy
I did
found
not.
it? And did you ever have any contact with anybody from King County regarding transferring the weapon from Snohomish County to King County?
I received, I had some email correspondence and a phone call, I believe, but I did not actually participate in any evidence transfer. Once I booked the firearm into our evidence bay at the precinct, that was the extent of my dealing with the physical gun itself.
So when you booked the firearm into the evidence bay at the precinct, are you booking it into the white box that you saw in the photograph?
Yeah, I packaged that box up and taped it all up, and then I have a sheet of paper that I fill out with the details, case number, and we have these little foot lockers, and you put it in there and lock it up, and then the only people that have the key to that are our evidence collection people.
All right. Let me hand you what has been admitted as State's Exhibit number 135. I'll ask you if you recognize this.
Yeah, it's the box from the slides that we've been looking at, and one I used to package the firearm we've been talking about.
And does it have your handwriting in the upper left sort of portion of that box?
Correct. This part here is what I was indicating was mine on the previous slide.
And I think you indicated that you had some initials that you'd put on the flaps or something like that.
Yeah, it looks like most of them are covered up with other tape, but they would have been, you see part of one right there, and then there's a J there and there. There should be one underneath this sticker on this end for anytime we put evidence tape over something, we initial it that way. Somebody can't take that tape off and then put it back without us knowing it.
There is some apparent blue tape on that box, and I'll ask you if you recognize what kind of tape that is.
That's additional evidence tape.
And is that from any particular agency?
It's not from me. It looks like the State Patrol Crime Lab.
So the reason I ask,
says on there.
the reason I ask if any forensic testing was done on that weapon, and it wasn't done by you.
Correct. Yeah.
And could you take a look inside and just satisfy yourself whether that's the same weapon that you packaged?
Yeah, it's the same weapon and the same one that we've been viewing in the slides.
Let me take that back from you.
Thank you.
I'm going to hand you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit number 136. Maybe take a look at that envelope and tell us if you recognize any of the writing or handwriting on there.
Yes, my handwriting on the front here. It's the same envelope that we were talking about in the previous slides. As the shell casings are right, should be right in here.
And I think, again, there is some apparent, is there blue tape on the back?
Correct. It says Washington State Patrol Crime Laboratory.
And again, if there's any testing done on those shell casings, it wasn't done by you.
Correct.
Can you take a look inside and tell us whether you recognize what's inside?
Yeah, there's the three shell casings that we've been looking at on the monitor up there in there.
Can you take that back from you? So I think you told us then you package these items of evidence and you seal them and do what with them?
Put them in our storage locker and lock them up with a padlock for the evidence tech to come get them. Then they take them to a different facility in the city of Everett. It's a common evidence room.
Do you know, did you ask the young boy to back out at any point and look for more evidence or anything like that?
No, I didn't. I had other contact with him, just reference. Once we realized that the firearm was involved in a crime, I let him know that. And I don't remember what day I did that. So I was going to bring him back out the form to fill out for the found property, but I let him, he and his dad know that the gun probably wasn't going to be released to them as it was evidence in a crime out of county. So not to be waiting for the 30-day thing to get the gun back.
Can I have just a moment, John? Let me just ask you, when you did the records check and found out that there was no parent record of it, is that in one of the databases that you talked about that's either Washington or nationwide, or are you talking about sort of a database limited to Snohomish County?
That was the one that the dispatcher is supposed to check. Involves the national one, the state one, and then our local records management system. The same time they enter it, the computer should check all those. The keyword is should.
So you're checking this over your radio with the
Correct.
dispatcher? Okay. Did you later come to learn that it actually is registered?
Yes, I did.
I think those are all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cross-examination?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, just from my record setting, one second, sir. Any objection to lifting the conditions as to 135 and 136 and fully admitting them at this point?
Not from Steve.
No.
No? Okay, so 135 and 136 are fully admitted now. Anything further?
And Deputy Minor's free to go write more tickets.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm done with that.
Just make sure you head north.
Yeah. Yes. My ticket book's been retired, so.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Have a good day now.
Thank you, man.
And your next witness, Mr. Report?
This is Catherine Dooley.
Could you just step up and raise your right hand after you? You swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Please rise.
Good morning, Ms. Dooley.
Good morning.
Can I please have you state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Yes, it's Catherine Dooley, Dooley.
Do you have a business address?
Yes, 1000 California, Everett, Washington, 98201.
And what do you do at that address?
Right now I'm in the technology unit of the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office.
And what do you do in the technology unit?
I basically maintain the police agency's software, and other people in my unit help with the laptops and phones and just keep them all running. Basically.
And did you ever work in the evidence unit for the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, before this I was in the evidence unit.
And what did you do in the evidence unit?
We rotated positions, but one person would transport property from outlying areas and bring it into the evidence facility. One person would book it in, verifying any serial numbers or anything like that, running things if necessary, and then finding a place to store them. And then other people would take things to the lab and bring them back, or take care of people at the counter and all that other stuff. So I did all of that, but not at the same time.
Okay. And so how long have you worked for the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office?
14 and a half years.
And what time frame were you in the evidence unit?
2010 to about 2013.
So in July of 2011, you would have been in the evidence unit?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to draw your attention to that time frame. While you were there in July of 2011, did you handle a .357 Magnum revolver that was
Yes.
found on the bank of the Snohomish River?
Yes, I
Or
did.
Stillaguamish River?
Yes. Yes, I did.
And how did you get involved with it?
It was brought to our evidence facility as found property from one of the precincts, and I was the booker at that time, so I booked it in.
And so what does that mean? You booked it in?
So that means when I received it, because it was booked as found property, I unsealed it and verified the serial number, and then ran it to try to find an owner, and then ran the owner's history to see if we could release it to him or her.
And so when you say you received it, what condition was it in when you received it?
It was boxed up, so I just had to unseal it and open it. I think it was pretty rusty because it had been in the water, but otherwise it was fine.
Did you actually handle the actual firearm at that time?
What I would have done is just open the chamber because he had zip tied it in a way that I could open the chamber to see the serial number without actually taking it out of the box.
And so what did you do once you saw the serial number?
So then I ran it through the DOL database and for the stolen database, and I found that it wasn't stolen, but it was registered to Joseph McEnroe.
And so did you do anything else? Did you receive any other pieces of evidence that was connected with that firearm?
Yeah, there was an envelope as well with 3 shell casings in it, but all we do is we just put a label on it. Since it was already sealed and there's nothing to verify, we don't do anything.
Ms. Julia, now I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification as State's Exhibit 138. You recognize that document as well?
Yes.
And what is that?
This is the receipt that we print out when we're releasing evidence or property. And so this one shows that I released the shell casings and the gun to Detective Tompkins. Not that you can tell by his signature, but I wrote his name down here as well, on 7/18/2011.
Okay, and so was this document also created at the time that you released the evidence to Detective Tompkins?
Yes, I would have created this right at the moment that he was at the counter.
And is this document also created in the normal course of business in the evidence unit?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time the state would offer what's been marked as State's Exhibit 139 or 138 into evidence.
No objection.
Thank you. 138 is admitted.
Ms. Julia, I'm also going to hand you what's been marked for identification as State's Exhibit 140. You can look at those pictures. Do you recognize these pictures?
Yes, these are pictures of the box that the gun was booked in, as well as pictures of the gun as it was in the box, and the envelope of the shell casings. And the 2 pieces of paper I already have. Yes.
And are these fair and accurate representations of the box and the firearm, as well as the shell casings and documents that you used in this case?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, the state would offer what's been marked as State's Exhibit 140 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection.
Thank you. 140 is admitted.
And may I publish to the jury?
Certainly, go right ahead.
Thank you. And for a record, we're looking at the first slide in State's Exhibit 140, and it's entitled 357 Magnum Revolver and Shell Casings Evidence Transfer. We could look at the next slide. And this is slide A in Exhibit 140. Ms. Julie, what are we looking at here?
This is the outside, the top of the box that the gun was in. At the top where it says evidence, there's a bunch of handwritten stuff. That was what the deputy wrote when he booked the gun. And then near the middle on the bottom are my initials and the date that I resealed it after I'd run the gun.
And do you mean run the serial number?
Yes, run the serial number.
And is that July 12, 2011?
Yes.
You can look at the next slide. This is from State's Exhibit 128J. Do you recognize this photo?
Yes.
And is this the gun that you checked the serial number on?
Yes.
So from this picture, it looks like there's a zip tie around the barrel. Were you still able to move the barrel so you can check the serial number?
Yeah, because I can just move it over to the side.
Okay. And the next slide. This is from State's Exhibit 128K. Now, is this how you check the serial number?
Yeah, I would have opened the cartridge, and then underneath it shows the serial number.
Now, would you have checked any other part of the gun for a serial number?
Only if that serial number was illegible, which it wasn't. So.
Okay, so you only checked this one area.
Yeah, I only checked that one.
And the next slide. This is from State's Exhibit 128L. And so is this the serial number that you checked?
Yes, it is.
And you testified that once you ran this through your database, it came back to a registered owner?
Yes.
And that registered owner was who?
Joseph McEnroe.
Okay. And the next slide. This is from State's Exhibit 140, slide B. And so what is this?
This is the envelope in which Deputy Minor booked the 3 shell casings. So he writes the part that's handwritten on the bottom, and then when we receive it, we put the barcode on the top that has our storage location and the barcode so that we can more easily find it. And the little barcode in the corner is pre-printed so that they're unique for each item.
So you would have added those barcodes?
Yes.
And the next slide. And this is slide C. And this is, I believe this is still State's Exhibit 139 that you have in your hand?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So on this document, you would have received this with the evidence?
Yes.
Okay. And you didn't fill any of this information out?
No, this only shows what we got from the deputy.
And it does look like on that first line where it has the revolver and the serial number. Do you see that on
Yes.
the, okay. And is that serial number the same serial number that you saw on the gun?
It was.
And the next slide. And is this the evidence transfer sheet?
Yes.
So on here, there's no serial number. Is that typical that you would not have put the serial number?
Yeah, our software only prints the description and the serial numbers in a different field.
So how do you match this transfer sheet with the evidence that you were releasing to Detective Tompkins?
By the barcode.
Okay, so the barcode, and that's on the left there,
Yes.
that would match on the actual pieces of evidence?
Yes.
Yep. Thomas Dooley, I'm going to hand you what's admitted as State's Exhibit 135. And do you recognize that as well?
Yes, I do.
And is that the evidence box that you would have received?
Yes, it is.
So is there a barcode on that?
Yes, it's on the end right here, the barcode, the small barcode, and then also our printed label that matches the one that's very similar to the one that was on the envelope.
Okay. And would you go ahead and look inside the box and see if that's the same firearm that you checked the serial number?
Yes. Yes, it is.
I'm also going to hand you what's been marked or admitted into evidence as State's Exhibit 136. I can take that back. Do you recognize that envelope as well?
Yes, I do.
And is that the envelope that you also released to Detective Tompkins?
Yes, it is.
And is the barcode present on that envelope?
Yes,
as
it
well?
is. It's just underneath this tag right there.
So did you have any other involvement with these pieces of evidence after that?
No, after I released it to Detective Tompkins, I had no other involvement.
Okay. Just one moment.
Yeah, maybe we had just a recall.
I'm sorry?
We had just a moment to talk.
Absolutely, go right ahead.
Thank you.
And Ms. Dooley, just a few more questions.
Okay.
Do you recognize Detective Tompkins in court today?
Yes, I do.
And where is he?
He's over there on the laptop.
Thank you. And then I just have one more question about this evidence transfer sheet. There are 2 barcodes on this evidence transfer sheet, and why are there 2 barcodes?
One is for the firearm, the top one, and the second one is for the shell casings.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Cross-examination, counsel?
No questions, Your Honor, thank you.
Then thank you very much for being here.
Okay.
Maybe you're pretty good. Have a good day now, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
And any other witnesses the state intends to call at this point?
Your Honor, we thought that this would take us up to the 11 o'clock hour. We can put the conference on for a couple of minutes if you like, just for the chain of custody, or that can wait till next week. You'll be called again.
Yeah, I think we can wait till next week on that. I'll only take a couple of minutes.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, please leave your notepads and pens there on the chair and then excuse from the jury room. Penny will deletion for the day and actually the weekend momentarily. Please report back on Monday at 8:30. We'll pick up at 9 o'clock, and I want to assure you that as I represented to you, I think it was yesterday, we anticipate that you'll be in deliberation sometime the week of February 29th. So have a great weekend. Please don't discuss the case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. Don't do any internet research or anything of that sort. And we'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Please be seated, everyone. Thank you. All right, and thank you all for indulging my required meetings down in Olympia. I'm still getting updates about what got canceled and what got put back on and so forth. So thank you very much for your help with that. And if I could ask Ms. Anderson to be transported at this point in time, and if everyone else would remain seated for a moment, please. Thank you.